Hello everyone, and welcome to Adobe Live on this beautiful winter Monday, wherever you are joining us from. It is so wonderful to have you here and to have the third week in a row as the video weekly creative challenge. I hope that everyone has joined the last 2 Mondays. Today is very exciting. We are going to continue creating some amazing little cinematic moments and montages inside of Premiere Pro using a cool little quick effect match cut, transitions, some sound design, and just take the boring sort of mundane routine that you may have in your life and show you how to turn that into something cinematic that you'd feel proud of to share. All right, so welcome everyone to the chat. I know it's Sundance week. I know there's a lot of people on the chat over on Behance, YouTube chat. And as I mentioned in the previous couple of weeks and couple of episodes, I have created the starter files for you to follow along. So the Premiere project file is in the link in the description. The footage that I have actually shot and created, it's kind of heavy footage. It's shot on a Canon R5. So if you want to use your own footage, feel free. By no means you need to use my footage, but if you want to watch this specific video and try to recreate what I've done, that is the perfect way to do that. All right, so without further ado, let's hop right into Premiere Pro. I know I want to cover a lot today in terms of creating this sort of montage and this sequence. So the first thing we're going to do is hop over here into Premiere Pro, and I just want to play back what I've already created. So as I mentioned, I like to sort of go in and document some of my morning routines, whether that's me drinking coffee or making breakfast or brushing my teeth, whatever it is. And it's a really interesting creative exercise and a good way for you to start to think outside the box of what you actually want to create. So I'm constantly using shot lists. I am creating different ways and different references for that. So I don't know if I can pull it up here. Let me see if I can inside of the reference files here. But as you can see, I've created a couple little like reference files for you. This is just my notebook and what I like to use to create my audios and visuals. This is for a different project, not this specific project, but I thought it was really valuable to show you kind of the inner workings of my brain and what goes into me actually creating these videos. Here's another one. This is more of just like a list format. So there's a ton of different ways that you can actually create your shot lists, whether that be on a Google spreadsheet. There's a lot of different apps and programs that you can use to create as well. But I tend to like to just write things down, and then I keep my notebook with me when I'm actually going to film something. And the beauty in creating shot lists is I'm a little bit fluid with it. I like to create something, and then it ends up inevitably changing when I'm actually shooting that content based on my environment, based on the lighting, based on the timing, how much time I have to actually shoot something. In this case, this is sort of a shot list at the bottom here, this coffee ASMR video, which is what I'm about to show you here in a second, of what I wanted to create. All right, so let's just hop back into Premiere Pro. And a couple little sort of guidelines of what I'm looking for when I'm shooting a montage like this. The important thing is you want to have a variety of your shots. You want to have establishing shots, maybe a wide shot. You want to, let's cut back to me real quick. You want to be able to have, a variety of different shots. You want to have those establishing shots, some tight shots, really create the story in a compelling way. And that not only looks, I think, just visually better than every shot being exactly the same, but it helps to guide the viewer along on a bit of a narrative, and it's just visually more interesting to watch. So let's play this back, and this is like my base morning routine, and in this case, I filmed it for you to see what we got going on here. So let's just play that back. All right, for some reason, one second, we are going to cut back. Let's cut back to our Premiere. Here we go. Now we're inside of Premiere Pro. All right, awesome. So lots of different things going on in here, lots of different cuts. And as you can see, I don't have any actual audio other than the sound that is recorded on the camera. There's a couple little sound effects that we're going to go into in a minute here. But the couple things I do want to point out here, let's just mute this track, is we're starting on something that's this like wide establishing shot. So in this case, you just get creative with it. You know, there's no dictation on how you're supposed to shoot something like this. This is really just for fun. It's a good experimental way to get better at your craft, to learn the ins and outs of framing, lighting, cinematography, all those kind of things. And I really sometimes like those refrigerator shots. I think they look pretty cool. They captivate the audience really quickly. So the first thing we have here is we have this shot of me opening the refrigerator. And most of these shots, if you look back again, let's mute this as well. Everything is static and on a tripod, okay? So when you're shooting by yourself, when you're shooting alone, that's one of the things that can become a challenge. You want to be able to set things up on a tripod so that you create the action yourself. And to create match cuts and to create transitions that way, you have to be a little bit more creative. So if we look at this shot right here, this is me, you know, just filling up this kettle in the sink. So let's just go into our audio mixer really quickly. We're going to hop into audio. We're going to go into our clip mixer, and I'm going to just take the track down a little bit just so that we're not blowing everyone's ears out here on the stream. All right, so what I did here is we have our clip of me filling the kettle here, and then what I did is I actually wiped that kettle over the frame. And what that allows me to do then is have another shot on the second shot here where I'm also starting on something in front of the lens. So if I open this clip up, we're going to go back into our edit panel here. Let's see this, reveal this in project. All right. And if we double click this, you can actually see that I started this clip right up here on the lens. All right. So if I go frame by frame, now we've dropped our tortillas out of the frame. So from here to there. Okay. And what that allows me to do is create what's called a match cut, or in this case, it's sort of like a transitional cut. So I can go, and let's just bring this into its own sequence. So we're going to go 1920 by 1080. Let's just create this and call this challenge 3. All right, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back into my project panel here so we can look at the footage together. And I'm going to go from that first clip of me in the sink here. So if I'm going to drag my audio and my visual in at once, I'm going to zoom this in. And if you're using the new beta version, there's a couple little features that are new to Premiere Pro, which I'm going to be talking about on my Instagram and sort of later this week. But this is one of them, that this little like cross dissolve that has become so handy to actually like use that cross dissolve in a much more customizable way than we used to be able to do before. All right, so let's take this clip, for example. Okay, and then here you can see that I've now wiped this, the intention in mind that I want to wipe that shot and then end up in another shot so it looks like there's a transition, but I'm doing all of those transitions in camera. All right, so if I go here, I'm going to cut that clip. Command K is how I set up my shortcut. All right, and then what we're going to do, cut this, and then we're going to go back in and we're going to find that other clip that we talked about of me dropping those tortillas. And this is something that I sort of plan out when I'm thinking about, okay, how can I create something visually appealing between these two clips and make it look like there's almost like magic involved. And really there's so many simple ways to do it, different ways to do it. And I love finding kind of unique, creative ways to create those transitions when you're just shooting alone. So we're going to take this clip here where I start on my black tortilla there. Maybe we want to set an in point and an out point and drag this in. All right, so now if we look at these two clips together and we play that back kind of in real time, you can kind of see that we've created our own little transition just by me wiping the kettle and then ending on this. But I want to move this up a little bit more so it's still moving. Command K, W is going to be my ripple delete. And now we have something that's pretty cool just from kettle in the sink and this shot of, you know, the tortillas landing. Okay, and all I really did there, they're both tripod shots, they're both sort of a wide shot, and I just thought ahead based on my shot list of how do I make these things kind of come together in a really interesting way. All right, so that's one example that we have inside of this video. Another example I want to break down And again, this is today all about shooting the mundane things, some things that may not really be that exciting on its face, and creatively finding a way to make them engaging and make them visually interesting. All right, so the second thing I want to break down here is this is a true match cut where I'm using like shapes in my videos to create the effect that I'm cutting from like one similar frame to another. All right, I'm going to mute this real quick, again, so we don't blow out my eardrums, and we're going to just play this little section here for a second. All right, so let's play from here. All right, so you see this right here, this egg shot. This is, if I turn on my safe margins, which I always like to keep these on when I'm creating specific match cuts. And the reason being is over here I have my guides. If you do not see your guides, go to your button editor window, and these are going to be all these little buttons that may not show up in your default editing settings, and then you just drag this on to your actual toolbar. So these are like the most used tools that you might use. I have my loop playback here as well. All right, so what you can see is I've actually scaled this carton down, or this shot down. If I go to my effects controls, you'll see that I have scaled that into about 160% instead of what this was initially. All right, and the reason I did that is because I noticed in putting these two things together that we have these like round shapes, okay? Like round frame, we're shooting from the top down in both of them. So why not try to line those like rounded spots up? So we're basically creating this really cool match cut between the two. So if I just scroll back and forth, we have that round of the coffee beans, we have the round coffee beans themselves, and here we have that really cool, nice circle of the eggs. All right, and so to spice that up a little bit more, what we did is we came in here and we started even more scaled in. So we create this really visually sort of quick cinematic cut so that we end here on the round egg as it opens, and then we go right into that coffee bean as well. All right, so lots of cool little things happening here. All right. Perfect, perfect, perfect. All right, so moving right along here. Okay, let's unmute this. All right, so here's a situation, if we're talking about sound now for a second, here's a situation where I did not have a sound effect for this specific shot here. Okay, I just forgot to turn my mic on at that point, and that's a really, really nice sound of me pouring that coffee, and it will add to the kind of movement and that cinematic element that we have in our video. All right, and this is a third little hack or transitional tip inside of Premiere Pro, and that is called a J cut or an L cut. Okay, and so if we turn this mute button off, we drag this up a little bit. Whoops, 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 whoops. We have a sound effect that I put in of just some standard like coffee pouring. And I actually, it took me a while to find that sound effect. I was using Artlist, but you can sort of source some of the sounds right here inside of Premiere Pro using some of the Adobe stock features. But you got to find something that does feel a little bit realistic. It feels like the one you would have recorded. Now, I could have just gone back and recorded that over again with my audio, but time is money and I didn't really have that time. Okay, so what I did is I added this little sound effect here. I dragged the volume down. We used these new handles that we have here inside of Premiere Pro. And what I did is I dragged this audio out underneath the previous clip, all right? So that I'm creating that anticipation for the next clip. It happens really, really quickly and it happens fast. However, if I turn this off, you can already hear that sound effect coming in. So it's anticipating the next cut that's happening. And this is a very common practice in video editing, not just with audio, but with visuals as well, the L cut or the J cut. And that helps to sort of give the audience or the viewer the anticipation of what's to come and what's next. And it's also just a much cleaner way to edit than just cutting right on this clip. So if I play this back, that sounds good too, especially in this sort of context where everything's a little chaotic in these like match cuts. However, I wanted to add a little bit of that element in that J cut here, just for the sake of creating something really, just it's pleasing to the ears. You know, it sounds really, really good. All right, so we're gonna move on. Again, I've created all this for you. You can completely dissect it, use it how you want, and rebuild it. That's the idea here. I'm not gonna go ahead and rebuild everything, but there are a few things in these 25 minutes that I really wanna hit on as specific tips and tricks inside of Premiere Pro. All right, so let's keep on going. Here's another situation. I'm gonna turn this down because that is very loud. Okay, this now, if we're going into our third sort of tip, is called a jump cut. All right, you've probably seen them before, but a jump cut is essentially where you're cutting in between the action of one clip. So if I open this clip up in my project and I double click this, this is a very long clip. It's pretty boring if I were to just put this in and you're just watching me struggle to crack eggs. The sound is there, you know, the framing is there, but the edit is really where this sort of comes together and it makes it something that moves really, really fast. And in doing that, we use what's called a jump cut. All right, so I'm going to pull over a new sequence. We're going to call this jump cut test. And we're just going to drag this clip, the whole clip, into it. Let's go back, keep those. All right, so we're going to go from like here all the way to the end. Drag this in. All right, keep those settings. Boom. So as you can see, this is a very, very long clip. Okay, but the way that I would go about doing this jump cut is to try to make this as quick as possible and find the spots that maybe look the most visually appealing. In this case, the cracking of the egg is a great audio cue as well. So I'm going to find where that is. Okay, that's a little too loud. Let's maybe go down the line here and let's go to like this one. All right. So we're gonna just cut this whole part out, Command K, W is a ripple delete. I have done that and I've added my own shortcuts. If you don't have that on your keyboard, whether you're using a Mac or PC, you're gonna go into keyboard shortcuts and just search whatever effect or whatever tool you're trying to use, and then customize them to your liking, to whatever works for you, all right? So we can actually still remove some of that, Command K. All right, so I'm gonna go Command K. So that part right there is one little cut. Now the beauty of the jump cut is now we can take another part of this. Maybe we like the sound of me cracking it open. Command K, double click that. So now all we're gonna do is we're just basically creating a distance of time. Jump cuts allow you to use a clip to cover more time rather than the viewer sitting there and watching the entire like 3-minute span of you creating this egg mixture, okay? And it allows you to not only hook the viewer, keep them engaged, but then to cover that span of time in a really creative way. Cool, so we're already getting something nice. We got that sound cue, and let's maybe get like one more little thing here, Command K. If we play that back, that's cool. And I think we're good with that. All right, so if we look back at what we actually did here, very, very similar. Cool. And I continued that style. I continued that sort of transitional style all the way down the line here into some of these more visual cues. So if I turn this down, we went from cracking the egg, jump cut, jump cut, to the mixing of the egg. And if you look at this, this is really only like, this isn't even a full second clip. All right. The one big takeaway from this stream, and hopefully from, you know, watching some of these videos, is experiment with really cutting down these clips if you're looking to create something that's a fast-paced movement or a fast-paced video like this, because the quicker those cuts are, the more your viewer is going to be engaged. They may want to watch it again and be like, oh man, like how did they do that? And this is a way where if you're watching your own videos back and you feel like it's too long, it's about 2 seconds too long, or it's a second too long. So really learn to trim, and get comfortable with having these really, really quick cuts. It's gonna just make your work so much better. Cool. And then here, another one of those techniques that we talked about, we went from round to round. All right, so you look at, not everything needs to be this like wipe transition. Not everything needs to be like a zoom in transition. In this case, we went from a shot that had a sort of circular element in it to a shot that had a circular element in it, but shot from a different way. And I think that gives the viewer something visually interesting to look at as well. And then here, we sort of repeated that process of, because I'm shooting by myself, I need to find ways to have those wipes while my camera's on a tripod. And in this case, I did the same thing with the tortilla, but now we are in a different location. Okay, so here I didn't necessarily, wipe these two together, but let's say we wanted to add an effect to this to really sell that like push in or that zoom. Okay, so this is another little trick that you can do to add some of those extra zoom elements into your project once you've created those transitions in camera. All right, so you're going to right click, you're going to add adjustment layer. Okay, then we're going to drag this adjustment layer over top of the two clips that we want to have that transition happen between. All right, and we want this to be pretty quick. Okay, so I'm going to just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frames. We're going to drag this adjustment layer in, and then we're going to do the exact same thing to the other side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frames. Okay, so nothing is going to happen. We haven't added any effects to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my effects panel and I'm going to search for transform. This is I use this adjustment layer and this effect all the time for different reasons. This is one of the ways that you can add that little layer of spice to zoom in and create a really cool transition effect. All right, so we're going to drag this on to our adjustment layer. Again, nothing is happening. We haven't actually affected anything. But what I'm going to do is go up into my effects controls panel. We have all of our transform features. I'm going to set 3 keyframes. The first one I'm going to set is right on the cut up between those clips. Then I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, set another keyframe, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, set another keyframe. Hopefully we're still with me. Okay, these are going to remain at 100%. Our middle keyframe, we're going to change to 300% because basically what we want to do is like push in to pull out. Okay, so we're scaling into this property. And the important thing you want to do here is uncheck that composition shutter angle here and then change that shutter angle to something like 250 or 360 degrees. This creates like some really, really cool motion blur. Okay, so if I play this back, we've now taken this circular element, my pan, and we've zoomed into it to then zoom out. And I think that looks really, really cool. Okay, but there's a couple more things that we can do to really sell this effect. We're gonna go in here, and we're gonna right click our keyframes and create an easy out or an ease out, and then an ease in. All right, and then if we highlight these and we scroll down here to our little caret, you can see that, I'm gonna zoom this in a little bit here. You can see that we have these handles that we can create some even more like quick punchy animations to them. So I'm going to hold shift and I'm going to drag, I'm going to grab my handle here and I'm going to drag this up. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing here at the end. All right, so now if we play that back, we have something that kind of looks like I pushed the camera in myself, even though I did not. And again, this is all using what's at your disposal, using your brain, your creative like framing and things like that to try to make these shots with intention in mind and have some deliberate action when you're filming them. And I think it just comes with practice. It comes with doing it often. And it comes with like trying these things. Take your camera. It doesn't have to be a cinema camera. It doesn't have to be a mirrorless or DSLR or whatever. It could be your cell phone. You can get creative. I've seen so many of these videos on TikTok, on Instagram, and they're really, really fun because each time you learn something new about maybe what you can do the next time, how you can sell that transition just that much more. All right, so I'm gonna hide this last layer. We have a couple minutes left here, and I just wanna quickly hit on color correction because that is the one thing that we didn't really get into, and I think it could really use its own stream personally. But what I'm gonna do is, because all of these clips are shot, in the same environment, we don't necessarily have to go and add an effect to every single one of those clips. It would take too long, it's not very efficient, and there's a much easier way to do it. Okay, so I'm gonna remove that, and then we're gonna do the same thing. Adjustment layers, again, like every Adobe program, adjustment layers are your best friend. They're gonna help you kind of create larger effects on a global scale. Okay, so adjustment layer, we're gonna drag this on to our entire timeline here. All right, and then we can do like micro tweaks. Okay, so I'm gonna rename this. You can rename every layer. I'm gonna rename this my color LUT. All right, so for this case, I'm gonna go into my color window. All right, so if you wanted to, the first thing you would do, come up here, pull your Lumetri scopes up. These are something that I've talked about in previous streams. If you're interested, let me know in the comments below. I can do an entire video just on color correction. It seems like a lot of people are interested in that. But basically, I would go in here and I would make my like micro adjustments. I'd bring up the exposure a little bit. I'd bring the blacks down. This definitely needs some contrast. All right, maybe we want to change the warmth of this a little bit and maybe the saturation. Okay, so even just from there to there, we've created something that looks a lot better. All right, and then the last thing that I would do, if we go through all these clips, we've now created something, if we go on and off, that just brings the highlights up. It brings these things back to life. I'm going to add a LUT that I've created. Again, if you're interested, we can go over this at some point. So I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to take that LUT down to about 70%, just so it's not as intense. And if we play that back, now I've created something that was from here to here in less than a minute, just using the adjustments inside. I mean, this is obviously a little bit intense. So we would go through and make these micro tweaks. We'd go back to our basic correction and adjust them, you know, as needed. Okay, so a lot to go over today. I know this was like very, very fast. It seems like I can continue to go on, but hopefully we can address some of this next week on the next Adobe Live, my last Monday of the month. And again, thank you so much for tuning in. I really, really hope that this has helped you to decide, you know, go out, film those mundane routines that maybe don't look that cinematic. And hopefully this video helps to use some of these transition, use some of the cuts. Don't box yourself in. So if you want to use a tripod, go for it. If you don't, you want to add some movement, but having a body in the frame, a tripod really helps with that. And again, thank you so much for everyone who joined me on this video. I look forward to seeing you next week for the last installment of my weekly challenge. And again, thank you to everyone who is part of the Adobe Live community. If you are not, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure to head over to Behance. It's an amazing community. And until then, I will see everyone next Monday. Have a great, great rest of your week, everyone. Take care.